I was born into a world where hard work wasn't just a choice, it was survival. My father, a man who once dreamed of building a better life for us, lost everything in a real estate scam. The shame of that failure clung to our family like a shadow, and I learned early on that trust could be as fragile as glass. Growing up poor taught me resilience, but it also left scars. From the age of 16, I worked every job imaginable, hauling bricks under the scorching sun, fixing leaky pipes in freezing winters, even painting houses until my hands were raw. Each day was another brick in the foundation of what I hoped would become my future, a life free from the chains of poverty. When I met Sophia, she was different. She saw past the dirt on my boots and the calluses on my palms. Back then, she admired my determination, my refusal to give up no matter how tough things got. We fell in love quickly, deeply, and I believed with all my heart that we'd build something beautiful together. But dreams have a way of cracking under pressure, don't they? Sophia came from a middle-class family, educated, polished, ambitious. While she pursued her law degree, I carried the weight of our household on my shoulders. There were nights when I came home so exhausted I could barely stand, only to find her studying late into the night. I didn't mind, I wanted her to succeed. So when her tuition bill arrived one semester and we didn't have enough, I sold my truck, the one thing I truly loved, to pay for it. It hurt, but I told myself it was worth it. After all, wasn't that what love was about? Sacrifice? But somewhere along the way something shifted. The woman who used to look at me with admiration began looking at me with disdain. At first it was subtle, a comment here, a glance there. Then came the Christmas party at her firm. I remember walking into the room feeling out of place, my worn-out suit sticking to my skin. Sophia introduced me to her colleagues, her tone polite but distant. And then it happened. I accidentally knocked over a glass of wine onto some VIP's dress. The room froze. Instead of standing beside me, Sophia snapped. "Ryan, why can't you ever act appropriately?" Her words cut deeper than any blade. That night, I walked home alone, the cold air biting at my face, wondering when exactly I had become someone unworthy of respect. Her family made sure I never forgot my place. Eleanor, her mother, treated me like I was nothing more than a laborer scraping by. "Ryan's kind-hearted," she once said to Sophia, "but he has no future. You deserve better." William, her father, was colder still. He suggested Sophia reconnect with Adrian, a wealthy businessman he thought was a far better match. Even Lucas, her arrogant older brother, mocked me openly. "You're just a tool for Sophia to use," he sneered during one family dinner. His words stung, not because they were untrue but because deep down I feared they might be true. Lately though, there've been signs, things I can't ignore. Last week I caught Sophia whispering into her phone late at night. "I miss you," she murmured, her voice soft. "Let's meet tonight." When I asked who she was talking to, she exploded. "Are you spying on me now? Do you think I'm cheating?" Her anger felt disproportionate, almost defensive. A few days later, while helping her fix her computer, I stumbled across messages filled with hearts sent from an unknown number. I couldn't prove anything yet, but doubt gnawed at me like a pestilent rat. Looking back, I realized now that I was blind. Blind to the cracks forming in our marriage, blind to the way Sophia's love had turned into contempt. But ignorance is no excuse. Every sacrifice I made, for her education, for her dreams, was supposed to mean something. Instead, I've become invisible, a ghost haunting the edges of her perfect life. The days leading up to that dinner were strange, almost suffocating. Sophia had been acting differently, more distant, more critical. She kept reminding me to dress properly for the family dinner, as if my appearance somehow determined my worth. "Ryan, you can't show up looking like, well, yourself," she said with a sigh one evening while scrolling through her phone. Her tone wasn't playful or teasing. It was dismissive, like I was some project she needed to polish before presenting to others. At first I thought nothing of it. But then there were other things. The way she avoided eye contact when I asked about her late nights at work, how she snapped at me whenever I questioned where our shared money was going. My gut churned with unease, but I told myself not to overthink. After all, I'd spent years trusting her. What reason did I have to doubt now? That night, though, everything changed. We arrived at Eleanor and William's house, a sprawling estate that always made me feel out of place. The marble floors gleamed under chandeliers so bright they could blind you, and every piece of furniture screamed wealth. As we walked in, Sophia looped her arm through mine, but it felt forced, like she was trying too hard to convince everyone, including herself, that we were still a happy couple. Her brother Lucas greeted us with his usual smirk. "Ah, here comes the handyman," he quipped, loud enough for everyone to hear. I clenched my jaw, forcing a smile. It wasn't the first time he'd mocked me, but tonight, something about his words hit harder than usual. Maybe it was because I already felt like an outsider. Dinner started off predictably awkward. Sophia barely spoke to me, instead laughing loudly at jokes I didn't understand. Her parents exchanged glances across the table, their expressions unreadable but undeniably judgmental. Every bite of food tasted dry in my mouth, every sip of wine bitter. I wanted to leave, to escape the suffocating atmosphere, but I stayed, telling myself this was just another uncomfortable family gathering. Then came the moment that shattered whatever fragile illusion I'd clung to. I excused myself to use the restroom, claiming I needed fresh air. As I passed the study, I heard muffled voices coming from inside. Sophia and Lucas. Instinctively, I slowed down, my heart pounding like a drum. They weren't arguing, they were laughing, their voices low but unmistakably amused. Something about the sound sent chills down my spine. Against my better judgment, I stopped, leaning closer to the door. "You really think Adrian's the one?" Lucas asked, his tone dripping with mockery. "Of course," Sophia replied, her voice cold and calculating. "He's everything Ryan isn't: rich, educated, sophisticated. And unlike your little construction worker, he actually knows how to treat a woman." My chest tightened, each word slicing through me like a knife. I gripped the wall for support, my knees threatening to buckle. Was this really happening? Was she talking about me, about us, like I was nothing more than a stepping stone? But it got worse. Lucas chuckled darkly. "So what's the plan? Divorce him and marry Adrian? Sounds like a fairy tale ending." "It's already in motion," Sophia said, her voice smug. "Half of Ryan's assets will be mine once the papers are signed. By then I'll be long gone, with Adrian of course." I couldn't breathe. My vision blurred as rage and betrayal surged through me. All those years of sacrifice, for her education, for her career, for her dreams, and this was how she repaid me? By plotting behind my back, treating me like a pawn in her game of ambition? For a moment I considered barging into the room, confronting them both right then and there. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the realization that losing control wouldn't solve anything. Or maybe it was the part of me that still hoped this was all some terrible misunderstanding. Either way, I forced myself to walk away, my mind racing with questions and plans. As I returned to the dining room, pretending nothing was wrong, I realized something crucial: I couldn't let them win. Not without a fight. The night after that fateful dinner, I couldn't sleep. My mind was a storm of anger, betrayal, and disbelief. Every word Sophia had said echoed in my head like a relentless drumbeat. "He's everything Ryan isn't. Half of his assets will be mine." The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. She never saw me as an equal. To her, I was just a tool, a means to an end. And now she was planning to discard me like yesterday's trash. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not without a fight. The next morning, I woke up with a plan forming in my mind. If Sophia thought she could outsmart me, she was dead wrong. 4 years, I'd been the silent observer, the one who stayed in the background while she took center stage. Now it was time to turn the tables. I started small, checking our shared bank accounts for irregularities. At first glance, everything seemed normal. But then I noticed something odd: large sums of money disappearing at random intervals over the past 2 years. Where had they gone? It didn't take long to find the answer. Hidden beneath layers of financial jargon was a secret account in Sophia's name. The balance was staggering: hundreds of thousands of dollars quietly siphoned away from our joint funds. Each transaction felt like another punch to the gut. She hadn't just betrayed me emotionally, she'd been stealing from me too. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the records, my blood boiling with every new detail. How could she do this? After everything I'd sacrificed for her? But uncovering the truth wasn't easy, and it certainly wasn't safe. One night, as I sat hunched over my laptop reviewing surveillance footage I'd secretly installed in our home, I heard footsteps approaching. My heart leapt into my throat. Sophia was coming. Panic surged through me, but I forced myself to stay calm. Quickly, I shoved the laptop into my jacket pocket and slumped onto the couch, pretending to be asleep. When she walked in, I could feel her eyes on me. For a moment, I thought she might suspect something. But instead, she sighed softly and left the room, unaware of how close she'd come to catching me. As soon as the door clicked shut behind her, I exhaled sharply, my body trembling with adrenaline. That was too close. From then on, I knew I had to be even more careful. One slip-up, and she'd realize what I was doing. And if she did, well, I didn't want to think about the consequences. Still, the pieces were slowly falling into place. With each new discovery, my resolve hardened. But the biggest shock came when I dug deeper into Adrian. On the surface he seemed like the perfect gentleman, wealthy, charming, successful. But appearances can be deceiving. Through some discreet digging, and a little help from an unexpected ally, I uncovered a side of him that made my skin crawl. Her name was Natalie, Adrian's wife. When I reached out to her anonymously, explaining what I'd found about Sophia and Adrian's affair, she didn't hesitate to respond. Her tone was bitter, almost desperate. "I've known about his infidelities for years," she wrote back. "Sophia isn't the first and she won't be the last. He only sees her as a meal ticket, a way to double his assets during the divorce." Her words hit me like a freight train. So Adrian wasn't just using Sophia. He was playing her just as much as she was playing me. The irony was almost laughable, if it weren't so devastating. Together, Natalie and I began piecing together evidence. Text messages between Sophia and Adrian, emails detailing their plans, even photos of them together. We worked in secret, communicating through encrypted channels to avoid detection. Every piece of information we gathered was another weapon in our arsenal. As the days passed, I found myself torn between rage and determination. Part of me wanted to confront Sophia and Adrian right then and there, to expose their lies and watch them crumble under the weight of their own deceit. But another part of me, the smarter, more calculating part, knew that wouldn't be enough. If I wanted justice, I needed proof. Irrefutable, undeniable proof. And I needed everyone involved to feel the full force of their actions. So I waited. I bided my time, collecting evidence and building my case. Meanwhile, Sophia grew increasingly suspicious of my behavior. She started asking questions. Why I was working late so often, why I seemed distracted, why I kept locking my phone. Each question felt like a test, a trap waiting to snap shut around me. But I played along, feigning ignorance and keeping my emotions in check. Inside though, I was seething. Every lie she told, every manipulation she attempted, only fueled my resolve. By the time I met Natalie face to face, we had amassed enough evidence to bring both Sophia and Adrian down. Sitting across from her in a dimly lit cafe, I realized how much we had in common. Like me, she'd been betrayed by someone she trusted. Like me, she was determined to make them pay. "We'll destroy them," she said, her voice steady despite the fire burning in her eyes. Together. And for the first time since discovering the truth, I allowed myself to smile, not out of happiness but out of anticipation. Because I knew one thing for certain. Sophia and Adrian had no idea what was coming. The day of reckoning arrived faster than I expected. After weeks of meticulous planning, Natalie and I had everything in place. Every email, every text message, every piece of evidence was lined up like dominoes, ready to fall at the perfect moment. The venue? Sophia's law office, a place she considered her domain, her fortress of success. Little did she know, it would become the stage for her downfall. I sent out the invitations under the guise of an urgent family meeting. "It's important," I told Sophia when she questioned my sudden initiative. "We need to discuss some financial matters." She raised an eyebrow but didn't protest. By now, I knew how to play the part, the calm, collected husband who still cared about the future of our marriage. Inside, though, I was a storm of anticipation. This was it. The moment I'd been waiting for. When everyone gathered in the conference room that evening, the atmosphere was tense. Sophia sat at the head of the table, flanked by her parents and Lucas. Adrian stood near the window, his usual smirk plastered across his face. He nodded curtly at me as if to say, "You don't stand a chance." I smiled back, but mine was colder, sharper. Eleanor glanced around nervously, while William sat stiffly, his expression unreadable. Only Lucas seemed amused, leaning back in his chair with an air of smug superiority. "Thank you all for coming," I began, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. "There are some things we need to address tonight. Things that have been hidden for far too long." Sophia frowned, her eyes narrowing slightly. "What is this about, Ryan?" she asked, her tone clipped. "All in good time," I replied, keeping my gaze level. "But first let's talk about trust. About loyalty. About the lies that have been poisoning this family." I pressed play on the recorder and the room fell silent. The laughter from that fateful night echoed through the speakers, Sophia's voice cutting like glass. "He's everything Ryan isn't." The words hung in the air, heavy and damning. Sophia's face went pale, her hands gripping the edge of the table. "What is this?" she demanded, her voice shaking. "This is some kind of trick." "No tricks," I said calmly, pulling up the next slide on the projector. It was a screenshot of her secret bank account, the one filled with money stolen from our joint funds. Her name stared back at us in bold letters, undeniable proof of her betrayal. This isn't real, she stammered, her composure crumbling. You forged this. Before she could continue, I played another recording. This time, a conversation between her and Adrian. His smooth voice filled the room. Once the divorce papers are signed, we'll be set for life. The silence that followed was deafening. Eleanor broke it first, her shrill voice slicing through the tension. How dare you accuse my daughter of such things? You're the one who ruined her life. She turned to me, her face flushed with rage. You're nothing but a failure, a parasite clinging to her success. William, however, remained silent. For the first time, I saw a flicker of shame in his eyes. He looked away, unable to meet my gaze. Lucas jumped to his feet, pointing a finger at me. This is absurd. You're just trying to save face because you can't handle the truth, that Sophia deserves better than you. Oh, she does deserve better, I shot back, my voice rising. Better than both of you. Better than your lies, your greed, your manipulation. Adrian, sensing the situation spiraling out of control, made a move toward the door. But before he could reach it, Natalie walked in, clutching a folder filled with documents. Her presence alone sent a ripple of shock through the room. Looking for something? She asked, her tone icy as she tossed the folder onto the table. Inside were photos of Adrian with other women, along with emails detailing his schemes to exploit Sophia's wealth during their impending divorce. You bitch. Adrian snarled, lunging toward her. But Natalie didn't flinch. Instead, she stepped aside, letting him stumble into the wall. The chaos erupted fully then. Eleanor screamed, hurling insults at me while tears streamed down her face. William buried his head in his hands, muttering something under his breath. Even Lucas, the ever-confident brother, looked shaken, his earlier bravado replaced by panic. And Sophia? She collapsed into her chair, sobbing uncontrollably. Ryan, please. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, she pleaded, reaching for my hand. I pulled away, my expression hardening. Sorry doesn't cut it, Sophia. You've had years to do the right thing, to treat me with respect, to honor the sacrifices I've made for you. But instead you chose greed. You chose betrayal. And now you'll live with the consequences. For a moment the room was utterly still. All eyes were on me, but I didn't care. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt free. The weight of their judgment, their disdain, their manipulation, it was gone. I'm done, I said finally, grabbing my coat. Done with all of you. As I walked out, leaving behind the wreckage of their lies, I realized something profound. This wasn't just about revenge or justice. It was about reclaiming myself, from the person I used to be, from the people who tried to define me. And as I stepped into the cool night air, I knew one thing for certain. I was no longer invisible. The days that followed the fateful meeting felt surreal. For so long, my life had revolved around Sophia, her dreams, her ambitions, her happiness. But now, for the first time in years, I was free. Free from the weight of her expectations, free from the lies that had bound me, and most importantly, free to rediscover who I truly was. I didn't waste any time wallowing in the aftermath. Instead, I channeled my energy into something meaningful, something that could help others avoid the pain I'd endured. I opened a small counseling center, offering free support to people struggling with toxic relationships. At first, it was just a few clients, a woman trying to leave an abusive husband, a man betrayed by his partner, but word spread quickly. Seeing their gratitude, hearing their stories of survival and resilience, gave me a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. Writing became another outlet for me. Late at night, I'd sit at my desk and pour my heart onto paper, recounting my journey from betrayal to freedom. The book wasn't just about revenge or justice. It was about healing, about finding strength in vulnerability. When it was finally published, I held the first copy in my hands and felt a wave of pride wash over me. This wasn't just my story anymore. It was a lifeline for anyone who needed hope. One evening during a book signing event, a young woman approached me, her eyes filled with tears. Your story saved me, she said softly. I was stuck in a marriage where I felt invisible, worthless. Reading your book made me realize I deserved better. Her words struck a chord deep within me. It was as if all the pain I'd endured had been worth it, if only to help someone else escape their own prison. Meanwhile, Sophia's world crumbled around her. After Adrian discovered her secret bank account, and realized she had no intention of sharing the stolen funds, he dumped her without a second thought. Her career spiraled downward too. Once news of her betrayal leaked, her reputation as a lawyer was ruined. Clients abandoned her, colleagues distanced themselves, and soon she was left with nothing. She tried reaching out to me multiple times, texts, calls, even showing up unannounced at my doorstep, but I never responded. I wasn't angry anymore, I simply didn't care. She had chosen her path and now she had to live with the consequences. Lillian, however, surprised me. One day a letter arrived in the mail. It was from her, written in careful, deliberate strokes. Dear Ryan, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for not standing up for you when you needed it most. I watched silently as my family tore you down, as Sophia treated you like you were less than human. But deep down I always admired you, your kindness, your resilience, your quiet strength. You didn't deserve any of what happened to you. Please know that I've started a new chapter in my life. I moved out, enrolled in a trade school and am learning to support myself. Thank you for being the person who inspired me to break free. Sincerely, Lillian. Her words brought tears to my eyes, not out of sadness but out of hope. If my actions could inspire even one person to seek a better life, then everything I'd gone through had been worth it. In the months that followed, I found joy in the simplest things. Morning coffee on my balcony, laughter shared with friends, the satisfaction of helping someone rebuild their life. I realized that true freedom wasn't about escaping pain, it was about embracing it, learning from it, and using it to create something beautiful. And when someone asked me how I moved on from Sophia, I smiled and said simply, I didn't lose Sophia. I escaped her.